Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I hope you are keeping well. For anybody who's observing the Ekadasi fast today, my special greetings. It's a very special Sunday. Yesterday was Ekadasi, actually. Today is Dwadasi, but according to the calendar, it wasn't appropriate to fast yesterday. So some may be fasting today. So special greetings to all those devotees who are fasting. Unfortunately, Kalakanta Prabhuji is not able to join us today on the Sunday session. He's keeping well, but he's very, very busy. He's making preparations to come to London. And so I'm doing the introduction, but we have amidst us a wonderful God brother, Dhira Govindadasa Prabhuji, who I shall be introducing in a little bit, who will be leading our session this Sunday. But before we begin, let's please invite Dilip Prabhuji to take us through a kirtan of the Lord's holy names.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, everyone. So first we will be singing Srila Prabhupada's Guru Pranam mantra, then Panchatattva mantra, and since day after tomorrow is Narsimha Jayanti, so we will be singing Narsimha Kirtan. So I will share my screen.
We are not doing Gita.
We'll do it in a bit, Mataji. The kirtan goes first.
Yeah, after Kirtan we'll have Gita.
Yes, we will.
Very nice.
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlad Daine Prahlad Daine Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Shilatankanakalaye Shilatankanakalaye Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha Yato Yato Yami Tato Narasimha Yato Yato Yami Tato Narasimha Bahir Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha Bahir Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha Bahir Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha Bahir Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prabhadye Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prabhadye Tava Karakamadavare Naka Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Tava Kara Kamalavare Naka Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jayo Vigna Vinashai Jayo Narasimhadev Vigna Vinashai Jayo Narasimhadev Vigna Vinashai Jayo Narasimhadev Vigna Vinashai Jayo Narasimhadev Jayo Lakshmi Narasimha Jayo Anantadev Lakshmi Narasimha Jayo Anantadev Jayo Lakshmi Narasimha Jayo Anantadev Lakshmi Narasimha Jayo Anantadev Jayo Prahlad Narasimha Jayo Prahlad Narasimha Prahlad Narasimha Jayo Prahlad Narasimha Jayo Prahlad Narasimha Jayo Prahlad Narasimha Prahlad Narasimha Jayo Prahlad Narasimha Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Jayo Jayo Prabhupada Prabhupada
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Wonderful. Wonderful, Kirtan. Thank you very much indeed. I now have the good fortune of introducing to all of us Dhira Govindadas Prabhuji, who joins us today from Bangalore. Prabhuji has been very kind to join us, though he's a bit under the weather. He's filling in for Kalakanta Prabhuji, and today's session is a very special one. We are trying to understand what the sacrifices and the austerities made by Srila Prabhupada, the person whose version of the Bhagavad Gita we are following. He made it so simple and he made it so easy for all of us to understand the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna's message. So to answer to some devotees' question on whether we will have the Bhagavad Gita session today, yes, we are having that session today. And it's a special day because we are understanding the life of Srila Prabhupada. And when we get that perspective, it will help us understand and absorb the message of Krishna that much better. So I hand over to Dhira Govindadasa Prabhuji, who not only is an engineer by profession, he had a very inspiring career before he got initiated into the mission and turned a missionary. He was an aircraft engineer in the Indian Army Aviation before joining the mission. And Prabhuji also now, apart from preaching about Lord Krishna and his message to devotees, he also plays a role in the Social Service Foundation by Akshay Patra, for which feeds children and several people in India as well as in the UK. So a warm welcome to Dhira Govind Prabhuji. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Radhika Mataji. It's thrilling to be part of such a wonderful team here. All devotees. Kirtan was so soothing and very attractive. That shows, how souls we are all hankering for Krishna, and all this team is beautiful. I'm really happy to be part of this wonderful, session today. And I was going through an article. I think we all heard about Sonu Sood. Sonu Sood is one of the actor. Many of the, many a times he got negative roles. However, these days he has become a very big, a sensational hero, because doing a lot of charity. There is a charity called Sood Charity Foundation. He was especially inclined towards providing oxygen for the people. There was a girl called Bharati. She requested over the Twitter to the Sonu Sood, saying that, I'm dying, I would like to have the oxygen. Then through the Twitter, he got the input, and he actually airlifted her, I think from Indore city, I think. Somewhere he took into the different hospitals, started providing oxygen. So like this, he's been doing a lot of activities for the people in general. Now, why I'm telling this, because when we know about someone, when we get attracted with the qualities of someone, we start following. So we actually start following Instagram, we start following through Twitter, Facebook. So we start reading his articles. I'm just giving an example. Exactly like this, similarly, when we see Prabhupada, the more we start realizing how hard Prabhupada went through, at the age of 70 years, coming to US and that cold, trying to do something with the bag of cereals and potatoes and books, Bhagavad Gita book and a typewriter, trying to with the mission, with trying to please his spiritual master, Abhisharana, his divine grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Prabhupada. So when we try to understand Prabhupada's how Prabhupada was committed and what was his missionary spirit and how he wanted to help the spirit souls here on this planet. So when we go through the life events of Prabhupada, we develop that attraction and attachment and that love. So it instills our faith. Our faith becomes stronger. So today's endeavor is towards making our faith stronger towards Prabhupada, trying to understand Prabhupada, how he came, what he did. So through that, we become stronger devotees and understand his missionary spirit and try to inculcate that within our hearts and go ahead within that spirit. So let us try to understand this today. I would like to request Radhika Mataji to play this beautiful video of Prabhupada. Let's watch it. Over to you, Radhika Mataji.
His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The movement he started is now known to millions around the world, yet he himself remained in the background.
Yeah, sorry. I forgot to tell one thing, that post to this particular video, we will have a quiz. So based on, this entire video, based on this scenario, we would like to have the quiz, and kindly be focused, attentive on this video. So we'd like to, we'd like to understand more about, when we go through with the quiz, we'll understand more about, we will reflect ourselves. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. Please continue.
His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The movement he started is now known to millions around the world, yet he himself remained in the background. Without personal ambition, he worked humbly to spread Krishna consciousness, devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet his achievements and personal character did not go unnoticed. The world's leading scholars and religionists praised his unique contribution, and thousands grew to love him as their dearmost friend and well-wisher. In his memory, his disciples erected a stunning memorial in the hills of West Virginia, now visited by 500,000 people a year. In this and many other ways around the world, Srila Prabhupada is offered expressions of love by those whose lives he most deeply touched.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare.
Always remember Krishna, God, and never forget him. This was the goal of the rich spiritual culture that flourished in India for thousands of years. Even today, Lord Krishna is remembered and glorified through monumental achievements in architecture, art, drama, music, dance, and philosophy. Calcutta, 1896, the capital of India, the crown jewel of the British Empire, an elegant city of wide avenues and spacious parks. It is here that Abhoy Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami is born. A pure devotee of Krishna from birth, Abhoy Charan is raised in a well-to-do mercantile family. From infancy, he goes with his father to the Radha Krishna temple, and at age 4, the child spontaneously begins worshipping similar deities in his home. When Abhoy Charan hears of Ratha Yatra, a traditional festival in honor of Lord Krishna, it further inspires his natural devotion. With his father's help, every year he holds his own small celebration, drawing the neighborhood children into the festivities. At age 8, Abhoy Charan enters the nearby Mati Lal Seal School. After graduation, he attends Scottish Churches College, one of the most respected in Calcutta. At the time, Mahatma Gandhi is organizing his countrymen in a nationwide boycott of everything British. Gandhiism is surging through India, uniting her in a massive non-cooperation movement. Sensitive to British subjugation of India's culture and people, Aboy Charan becomes an early supporter of Gandhi's movement. But 1922 marks a turning point in Aboy Charan's life. He meets Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, the greatest devotee of Krishna of his time. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta belongs to the disciplic succession of spiritual masters extending back to Lord Krishna himself. He convinces Aboy Charan that Krishna's spiritual message transcends India's dependent position. Nothing is more important. He requests Aboy Charan to spread Krishna consciousness in the Western world. Aboy Charan hears and is deeply impressed. By this time, Aboy Charan has a growing family. He moves to Allahabad and starts a successful pharmacy. All the while, his spiritual master's words remain implanted in his heart. In 1933, he becomes a disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, who comments, "He will do everything in due time." 3 years later, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta leaves this world, after again requesting Aboy Charan to preach in English. Aboy Charan takes his words to heart and starts writing prodigiously. In 1944, he single-handedly begins publishing and distributing Back to Godhead, a fortnightly. The first issue addresses the crisis of war. The Second World War within 20 years is scourging the earth. Back to Godhead points out that people throughout the world want an end to war. But so often they want God's kingdom without God, and they cannot have it. All our plans will be doomed to failure by our own selfishness unless we turn to God. After the war, Aboy Charan moves to Jhansi and founds the League of Devotees. He prepares a charter for an international organization, its members dedicated to a peaceful, God-centered life. Acharya Prabhakar, his first disciple, remembers.
शिक्षा लेने के लिए, दीक्षा लेने के लिए उन्होंने प्रश्न किया.
He was always teaching Krishna consciousness, and people came to him for knowledge. After hearing from him, many wanted to become his disciple. He told them, "I can make you my disciple, but first you please chant the names of God and give up cigarettes, meat-eating, illicit sex, and gambling." But few people would agree to give up these habits. Then he said, "Indians are imitating the Westerners. I will make disciples in the West. Then when the Indian people see Westerners following religious principles, they will also follow." Following tradition, at age 58, Aboy Charan retires from family life, and 5 years later accepts the renounced order. He is now known as A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He lives alone in the historic medieval temple of Radha Damodar in Vrindavan, engaged in deep studies and writing. It was in Vrindavan that Lord Krishna revealed his pastimes 50 centuries ago, and saintly persons throughout the ages have worshipped this land as the most sacred on earth. Unlike other holy men who live there, Bhaktivedanta Swami is not thinking of retiring. For him, Vrindavan is a source of inspiration, an ideal place to chant, worship, and write. Here he begins work on his life's masterpiece, translation and commentary on the monumental devotional classic Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhaktivedanta Swami calls it a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. But often he leaves Vrindavan to print his magazine and books in nearby Delhi. Traveling takes time and tolerance, but Bhaktivedanta Swami accepts it as part of his spiritual mission to broadcast devotional service to Lord Krishna. He writes, "Our leaders have carefully set aside the treasure house of India's spiritual asset, and they are imitating the Western material way of life. But people are more unhappy than ever before because of the exclusion of the most important part of life, the spiritual aspect. In Delhi, Bhaktivedanta Swami personally distributes copies of Back to Godhead, and with small donations, struggles to maintain the publication. He regularly sees Surendra Kumar Jain, a printer.
It was somewhere in the month of February 1956 that I first met Prabhupada. He came to my press for getting the magazine printed, Back to Godhead. I found that it was not very easy for him to collect money. He would come to the press practically every day, and after the printing was done, he would do everything himself. But he was a dedicated person, a very committed person. And at the times when he was not in a position to pay the bills, I would ask him, why are you running this? Why don't you stop it? He would say, no, it is my mission. And one day Surendra Kumar will see that I will succeed in my mission.
By 1964, Bhaktivedanta Swami completes 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri lauds his accomplishment and recommends his books for placement in India's public libraries. Sumati Morarji, chairman of the Scindia Steamship Company, gives contributions for printing Bhaktivedanta Swami's books and arranges for his passage to America.
And he used to come every evening. And one day he said that he would like to go to America. I was surprised. I said, Swamiji, don't go there. You are too old to go, and it will be too cold for you. Still he insisted. So I said, all right. So I made arrangement for him to go by Jaladuta. On way, while he was passing through Suez, that day was Lord Krishna's birthday. And he gathered all the people on board the ship, all the crew members, officers, and recited some shloka, and then some prasad was distributed to them and all that.
Bhaktivedanta Swami, a lone mendicant, 70 years old, traveling halfway across the world. His only resources, the message he carries and his unflinching faith. The voyage on the Jaladuta proves a great trial. Bhaktivedanta Swami endures seasickness and then suffers severe chest pains. In 2 days, he has 2 heart attacks. If another comes, he thinks he will surely not survive. But gradually, he recovers. He writes, I feel today better, but I am feeling separation from Vrindavan. I have no qualification, but I have taken up the risk just to carry out the order of my spiritual master. September 17th, 1965. The Jaladuta arrives in Boston Harbor. On board, Bhaktivedanta Swami writes, My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Most of the population here is absorbed in material life. How will I make them understand your message? I can simply repeat your words, and if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I have been designated as Bhaktivedanta, devotion with knowledge, and now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhaktivedanta. Signed, the most unfortunate, insignificant beggar, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Bhaktivedanta Swami first stays in Butler, Pennsylvania, in the home of a friend's son, Gopal Agarwal, and his wife, Sally.
The Swami was a friend of my husband's father, Mr. Agarwal, in Agra, India. And he asked me to sponsor the Swami, and that's what I did. And that's why he came to our house in the middle of the night one night. He stayed with us for a month in Butler. And I learned, over the time, I learned to love him as I would a father-in-law. He was a very sensitive and kindly type of person. He was indeed one of the most unusual men I've ever known in my life. The Swami came with so few possessions. He came with the clothes he had on his back. He had a typewriter, and he had his books. And he had a bag of cereal. Imagine coming to a country on the other side of the world with so little, and yet he came with so much in himself. The Swami brought a pan with him in which he cooked his food, and in fact cooked our lunch too. Our little boy was only 6 months old when he came, and the Swami was there when Bridge first stood, and he laughed and laughed to see him stand up. When he laughed, he was just oceanic. He just seemed to take in the entire universe when he laughed, and he laughed a lot. I enjoyed my association for that 1 month with him about as much as I've enjoyed anything in my life.
Although comfortable in Butler, Bhaktivedanta Swami thought the most important philosophy in the world, Krishna consciousness, should be spread in one of the most important cities in the world, New York. He moves to 100 West 72nd Street. 3 months later, his typewriter and tape recorder for translating are stolen. Bhaktivedanta Swami later said, "I came to America risking my life. I was physically unfit and at the fag end of my days. Sometimes I did not know where to live, nor was I used to the severe cold. Seemingly I was alone for 1 year, but I never felt alone. I always felt the presence of my spiritual master, so I did not lose my enthusiasm, despite all difficulties." Bhaktivedanta Swami arrived in America during a decade of discontent. There's widespread dissatisfaction with America's war in Vietnam, and with what some consider her racist, exploitative dealings at home and abroad. Disillusioned by the establishment, the youth create a counterculture of their own. Around the time Bhaktivedanta Swami came, waves of Americans are breaking away from the status quo, searching for an alternative. For a short time, Bhaktivedanta Swami lives in the Bowery in a loft given by a friend. Mukunda Goswami, who was attending his classes at this time, tells of their first meeting.
He wore very thick glasses and had a big Sanskrit book spread out before him. His voice was very deep and resonant. He spoke with great authority, and the Sanskrit shlokas he spoke were very beautiful, very melodious. He was obviously a very distinguished scholar, and I became very curious, almost astonished as to how someone of his stature, he looked very much like an aristocrat, could be living and residing in the Bowery, the Skid Row of New York. And afterwards, I approached him to speak. I was standing, and he was sitting on his small dais, so he was looking up at me, and he had the look of a very happy, innocent young child. And I could see that he actually had all the time in the world for me. He wasn't short of time. I asked questions, he would answer. Then after some time, he moved to a somewhat better neighborhood on 2nd Avenue. We helped him rent a small storefront there, and he had an apartment in the back. And within a few weeks' time, this little storefront on 2nd Avenue, on the Lower East Side of New York, which was then populated by thousands of young hippies, had been transformed into a beautiful Krishna temple. Allen Ginsberg, I remember, began to come at that time.
When he moved down the Lower East Side, I thought that was a stroke of brilliant social judgment, because traditionally, Swamis, yogis, Zen masters all moved uptown to the rich and were sponsored and funded by the rich, and you would find Krishnamurti living in elegant apartments on the Upper East Side with drawing rooms and French furniture, and here was Bhaktivedanta like in the depths of Calcutta, where the hippies were and where the acid heads were, and the freaks and the amphetamine heads and the meth monsters. So it seemed like he was actually bringing some kind of ray of song and light to the right place, the lower depths where it was needed. And where, of course, the Glory Side was the intellectual center in certain respects, in art and in advanced spiritual vibrations, particularly in the 60s. So it seemed historically just move on his part.
mine told me about Love Celebration at Tompkins Square Park, which was last Thursday, or Thursday before last. And I knew I had been seeking a guru for a while. So Krishna sent me there, and I was there. And after meeting some of the initiates, I knew that the Swami really had to be into something.
I came here in America in September 1965. I was wandering in the street, and some of the boys saw me, and gradually they came to me. My mission is to preach the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This transcendental vibration will cleanse the dirty things of the mind. It doesn't matter what he is. This transcendental vibration is equally appealing to everyone without any question of language, nationality, creed, or caste, because it is coming forth from the depth of the soul.
Krishna was all along preparing something, Bhaktivedanta Swami later wrote, and he brought you to me one by one, sincere boys and girls, to be trained in Krishna consciousness. Now I can see that it is a miracle. Otherwise, one old man with only a few books to sell for barely getting food, how could he survive, what to speak of introducing a God-conscious movement in a materialistic society? For Bhaktivedanta Swami, these are happy days. Singing and speaking with the vigor of a young man, he brings the Hare Krishna movement into the public eye by chanting in the parks, by distributing Back to Godhead magazine, by holding free Sunday love feasts. Many are attracted. His hopes for the future expand without limit. The Hare Krishna movement has taken root.
Sometime in the spring of 1967, people handed me clippings from New York newspapers saying that there was a Swami in New York City. So I went to New York to look up this person and his movement. My first contact was with disciples apart from Bhaktivedanta Swami, and I was frankly somewhat disappointed by the disciples. They seemed to be not very informed about what they were doing. They were unclear about the whole thing. And yet they were terribly serious and terribly devoted to what they were about. And I couldn't put those two pieces together. You know, their confusion, uncertainty on the one hand, and their commitment on the other, until I met Bhaktivedanta Swami. And as soon as I met him, which was after several visits to the temple, I realized that this was the person who really made the whole thing go. But the impressive thing about that was it was never himself in the center. He never said, you should do this because of me. He always said, you should do this, and I should do this because of Krishna. When he gave them instructions to do what they thought were impossible things, like he told one of the early disciples, go start a magazine. The guy had never had any contact with a magazine before in his life except to read one. And he said, how am I to do that? And Bhaktivedanta Swami said, Krishna will help you. He was just astonishing in terms of the personal impact that he had on people, the way that he was able to give them confidence in themselves, but more importantly, give them confidence that there was a guide who was leading them and would give them the strength that they needed.
Bhaktivedanta Swami does not belong to New York. He belongs to Krishna. So when a few of his followers invite him to San Francisco, he goes and introduces the freewheeling youth to Krishna, his ancient culture, his spiritual food, his eternal chant, the way to stay high forever. In the heart of the hippie movement, Haight-Ashbury, Golden Gate Park, and in the hearts of the hippies, the Hare Krishna mantra resounds with unimagined potency. As in New York, Bhaktivedanta Swami gathers sincere followers. The Hare Krishna movement begins to grow. Bhaktivedanta Swami becomes respectfully known as Prabhupada, meaning one at whose feet the masters sit. From Montreal, Prabhupada sends 6 disciples to open a temple in London. Yamuna Devi Dasi remembers.
So we went to London that fall, and although we had no permanent place of residence and we were completely dependent on Krishna, somehow or another, by the enthusiasm that Srila Prabhupada had given us in Montreal, we were able to make contact with George Harrison, who was a member of the Beatles at the time. And he was such a pleasant person to be with. He so much appreciated the Hare Krishna mantra that he immediately said, let's make a 45 record. So we'd cut a record, and he was very pleased with it, did a little background music on it, and it was released, and Apple organized tours for us. We went to Germany and France and had television coverage. And in this way, the London Times wanted to do, the Sunday Times wanted to do a feature on us, and we were able to send the report back to Srila Prabhupada with the headlines, Krishna Consciousness Startles London.
Hare Krishna. I hope everybody had been attentive and enjoyed the whole video. But it was very interesting. Especially Krishna Conscious, startles London. That's a very good title in the newspaper. And I remember that one of the disciples, when they were explaining about how when Prabhupada heard this, so Prabhupada was really ecstatic. He felt very happy that because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, he had this great desire. We need to distribute in the Western countries, especially in London, UK. So this when this happened. Through various devotees, with the help of the various devotees, and Prabhupada was really, really very happy. So today, something again in the through IHF London. So with all your devotees being part of this initial state of Gita life, so it's very interesting. It's definitely seems like it's not just an accident. It's all in Prabhupada's arrangement that all of you beautiful devotees to be part of this beautiful, some monumental thing happening in the London today through IHF London. I'm very happy to hear that. So we'll go through with the question answer session now. After QA, then we will announce the results of the quiz. First we will, we'll place the quiz now. Mataji, can we send the quiz link?
Yes, Prabhuji, it will be shared. It has been shared by Ragini Mataji on the chat window.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to take this quiz. It will take just 2-3 minutes to play this quiz. It's a tiny game. So please go to the chat box of the Zoom session, click on the link and take the quiz. It may take 2 or 3 minutes or maybe even up to 5 minutes, and we will regroup here in that much time.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna. So we give more than 5 minutes for this wonderful quiz. Thank you, Ragini Mataji, for this wonderful quiz. I hope that everyone could crack those questions. However, let us now go through with question answer session now. If you have any questions, let us take it. Then once that is done, then we'll go with the chanting of one round. Post to that, we'll have a quiz announcement. I'd like to welcome any questions if at all any devotees have. Otherwise, we'll directly go for chanting.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Delhi. Prabhu, while I was answering the cues, there was in the background I was hearing some Hare Krishna mantra.
Prabhuji, it's very faint. Could you increase your volume, please?
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yeah, Prabhuji, like when I was playing the cues, there was one Hare Krishna mantra playing in the background. That was very nice.
Soothing.
Yeah, very soothing.
That is Radhika Mataji's, spell
Discovery.
of magic.
No, I'm happy. I really enjoyed that mantra indeed. I'm sharing. I keep playing this all day long. It's just very beautiful. It's very soothing.
Yeah, I was also thinking the same.
The mood is something like surrender. What the Lord, and please help me. Everything is yours. Something like that. That it appears like that.
Indeed. I've shared it. I've shared it on the chat window, Prabhuji.
In fact, I was thinking I'll ask later. Radhika Mataji, I'm going to ask later.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji. Can we go for the chanting then? If nobody has any questions, then we'll go with the chanting.
Yes.
Yes, Radhika Mataji, over to you. Please continue chanting. Hello, so I have my Mala.
Hare Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakti. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. It was wonderful chanting. So, Mataji, I would like to request you to announce quiz results.
Yes, sure, Prabhuji. Some very interesting findings in the quiz results, I must say. Let me first announce the quiz results for those who took the quiz as part of last week's Club Tattva sessions, which we held. We have these Club Tattva reading sessions every day, Monday to Friday, every weekday. It's only for 20 minutes between 8:45 and 9:05 p.m. It's wonderful because each of us takes turns to read Krishna Katha. So it's a wonderful experience to just listen to a Krishna story and then go to bed. So last week, the winners are Surekha Mataji, Rupa Mataji, and Kalakanta Prabhuji in the third place. So Surekha Mataji and Rupa Mataji have even beaten Kalakanta Prabhuji in the quiz. So big congratulations. And today's quiz, which we took just now a few minutes ago, the first place goes to Dilip Prabhuji, The second place goes to Sunita Mataji. And the third place goes to MP. Who's MP? I wonder who it is.
Sorry, that's me.
Mukesh Patel. Mukesh Patel, Prabhuji, congratulations.
Thank you.
So it's just a fun element, isn't it? It's always nice to take up some quiz, etc. We also have the experience form, which Ragini Mataji has shared on the chat window. I request you to kindly fill that up. We've only seen one part of the documentary today. It's just so we can understand and absorb the details better. The second half of the documentary will be played in the following session, which is truly very interesting. And yeah, that's all from me in terms of announcements. Prabhuji.
So there's one important announcement I wanted to make. In fact, there is an app called Srila Prabhupada Leela. So this is an initiative from ISKCON Bangalore. So it's a beautiful app, it's available over the Play Store, you can download, where Prabhupada's, it's all anecdotes, it's small, just, it's 3 lines and 4 lines, and details and information has been given. If we can download that, every day, an anecdote will be sent. So we can see how the interaction between the devotees and Prabhupada, and how Prabhupada did that, and what miracle happened that day. There was a day when Krishna Balaram, they went to the altar, and the water in the Krishna Balaram, that glass, it was 50%. Who took this water? Krishna, how Krishna Balaram used to reciprocate, rather London Ishwara used to reciprocate like this. So this app is very interesting. I would like to request you all to go and download this app. It is very, even I'm going through it every day. That's it for now. Mataji, anything else?
Our sincere thanks to you, Diya Govindadasa Prabhuji, for taking us through this session. It was very enlightening for all of us. Many thanks to all of you for your patience. A special thanks to Ragini Mataji, who's become the quiz master for our group. She's conducting these amazing quizzes, which is very entertaining. So thank you very much for that. And a special mention to Dilip Prabhuji for the Kirtan. Thank you all very much, and see you next Sunday. Have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.